I can see, ma'am, from your affidavit that you have been for some time with the Forensic Science Laboratory. You said it's almost 29 years or so. 24 years. Yes, thank you. Now, one of the experts from the Ballistic Forensic Science Laboratory told this court that each and every exhibit that gets into the Forensic Science Laboratory must be registered. Do you also share the same view? That expert said the reason for that is to trace is to track or trace the movement of that exhibit. Do you also share the same reason? Now, what are the legalities? And I'm asking these questions based on the fact that you are an expert within the perimeters of the ballistic unit. What are the legalities of an exhibit that gets into the Forensic Science Laboratory in a way other than it being registered at the administrative section of the Forensic Science Laboratory? Mind to give an example? Yes, an example. I'm saying, do you mind to give an example?
For example, if you connect, for example, depends on the current situation. Maybe, for example, if you collect a small sample of a plank of wood that you cut out yourself, it will then be sealed at the scene, for example, and you will register it at the ballistic administration section.
Kuya ngokuthi ke yini ke oyiphethe noma uhamba nayo mhlambi ke usike nje iplanka ke khona lapha kwindawo leyo yesigameko bese uyalifaka ke ngaphakathi kuba uyifaka khona bese uyahamba ke uyolibhalisa khona lapho eballistic.
I will go back to the reason why an exhibit that is capable of being packaged into a seal bag should be put in the seal bag, and the seal thereof should be sealed before it gets sent to the Forensic Science Laboratory. Because the experts have elucidated on that aspect for quite some time now. They've explained the reason for that. So me and you won't go to that aspect again.
Ngeke sibesabuyela ke emuva ke ongothi sebekhulumile ngako ke isizathu sokuthi ke kuthathwe izibithi khona lapho lifakwe esikwameni asingeke sibuyele kuloko.
Thank you. Now let me try to paint the following scenario. In respect of what I've just asked you. Now there's an exhibit that is handed over, or that was handed over to the Forensic Science Laboratory. It got worked upon by a certain expert. And then it was released. And with the instruction that it should go for destruction, I'm talking of a firearm. There was a specific instruction that firearm should go for destruction. After that expert from the Forensic Science Laboratory had worked on it. It was taken out of the premises of the Forensic Science Laboratory. Okay, let me pause there. Do you understand?
I understand.
Sikhona ke nje sibhame sokhuluma ngaso ke lanto kwathi ke mase siqediwe ke ukusetshenziswa ngaso kwathi asihanjiswe ke.
Now you will agree with me that when the initial expert who worked on that exhibit had finalized his examination on that exhibit, he or she would seal it before it gets out of the Forensic Science Laboratory. So
that's correct, my lord.
Uyiqiniso ukuthi seqedile kusebenza ngaleso sibhamu ngaphambi kokuthi siphumeke khona ke eLab kuzofanele ke asifake ke kusona ke isikhwama sezobufakazi.
Thank you. Now this is what exactly happened here. It went to the police station. where instructions were given to the SAP 13 custodian, who was a captain, with instruction that he needed to prepare the firearm for destruction. But just before it could go for destruction, information apparently surfaced that that firearm could be linked with certain sins, or with this case that we're busy with now. Do you follow up with this
I
part?
follow, my lord.
kukhulunywe ngaleso sibhamu njengaphambi kokuthi ke sithathwe ke siyothathwa leso sibhamu leso kwakhona okuvelayo ukuthi ke singahlanganiswa ke nezigameko ezithile kakhulukazi lesi isigameko esingaso khona la.
Now, as a result of that information which surfaced, an expert from the Forensic Science Laboratory went to the police station, go and retrieve the firearm, and took it back to the Forensic Science Laboratory. However, when he fetched it, he found that the bag, the seal bag of that in which that firearm was put, was broken. Do you follow up to that far?
I follow, my lord.
Wasekethi ke manje ke sekutholakele ke lokho siyahamba kuyothatha leso sibhamu leso ezobuyela naso ke kodwa wathola ukuthi leso sibhamu leso sizofakazi isibhamu esasifakwe kusona ke manje ke asisavalekile ke noma ke asaphelele.
Nonetheless, he took it to the Forensic Science Laboratory. Firearm was never registered, according to, in fact, let me put it this way. It was not received the manner in which exhibits are supposed to be received at the Forensic Science Laboratory. That is through the administration section of the Forensic Science Laboratory, where they will issue you out with an acknowledgement of receipt, you know, that little paper. So he took it straight and direct to his office. Do you follow?
I follow, my lord.
Asitholakala ke ngendlela ke ekumele ukuthi ke sitholakala ngayo wase eyahamba naso ke manje eya e-office lakhe.
He went on to conduct certain tests on the firearm, part of which we are a bone of contention now. And he approached you. You probably know now that I'm talking about Colonel Mangena.
I know, my lord.
Thank you.
Yebo ngiyazi ke ukuthi ukhuluma ngayo uKolonel Mangena.
Now, the question is, in view of the fact that each and every exhibit that is supposed to get into the Forensic Science Laboratory, it had to follow certain protocol. And in this instance, such protocol was never followed. What is the view of the Forensic Science Laboratory in respect of this protocol that was not followed?
Firstly, my lord, there will be circumstances as to why Lieutenant Colonel Mangena, if we're not talking about the same person, would go to the SAP 13 and collect the firearm. There would be a reason therefore.
Okokuqala ke soba khona isizathu sokuthi ke kungani ke enza ngendlela enza ngayo uKolonel Mangena ukuthi ke ahambe ke aye khona lapho futhi ke aye ke SAP 13 ayothola isibhamu.
As to that, I cannot elaborate. I don't know what the reason is. You didn't explain that to me.
Ukuthi ke kungani ke akukho ke engakusho awusho ngomina ukuthi kwangani.
Further, the exhibits received at case administration at the Forensic Science Laboratory are handed in by investigating officers and are accompanied by a covering letter and then, as you said, acknowledgement of receipt.
Futhi ke amaqala uma engena khona ke elab noma ke amafile ke alethwa ibona ke abaphenya amaqala futhi ke kunencwadi ke noma ke iletter ke ehamba nayo kanye ke nala futhi ke khona umuntu avumayo ke khona ukuthi yebo ngikutholile lokho.
This covering letter, for example, will mention exhibits that are handed in and to the analysis they require.
Lapho ke izochaza ke amazibithi alethiwe kanye futhi nokuthi yini ekufanele yenziwe.
So this process will then essentially not be applicable, as Colonel Mangena is not an investigating officer with a covering letter handing it in at case reception.
Manje ke lokho angeke kwenzeke ke nanjengoba yena ke uKolonel Mangena engasiyena ke ophenye icala futhi ke ayikho neletter ke noma ke lokubizwa ukuthi phecelezi ke covering letter noma incwadi ke ehamba nayo.
As sure, as when Colonel Mangena receives, when you receive anything from an SAP 13, my lord, there are specific procedures that are followed at the specific SAP 13, which are police procedures.
Futhi ke khona ke kwenziwayo ke kuloko kubizwa ukuthi ke SAP 13 ekuyindlela ke amaphoyisa enza ngayo.
So I would then expect that even if Lieutenant Colonel Mangena collected the exhibit himself, he would have followed those specific procedures.
Ngindlela ukuthi ke noma ke uKolonel Mangena kuyena ke owaya wayosithatha ke isibhamu kufanele ukuthi lezo intela lezo ke wazilandela.
This court has been told that he went to the SAP 13 at the instructions of the investigating officer. In other words, the investigating officer said to him, I've got information that a certain firearm that the warrant rule officer worked on could be involved in this case. Can you please go fetch it at SAP 13? That is the reason why he personally went there. And he came and told this court that the reason why he did not request the investigating officer to go fetch it himself is because he himself knew exactly where to find that firearm. That is what he told this court. Do you follow?
I follow, my lord.
I was just addressing something. So I
no,
missed it.
thank you. I think you're here to stay. I'm saying, for the benefit of Mr. Jonas, Mr. Mangena told this court that the reason why he personally went to the SAP 13 himself, it's because the investigating officer, Lieutenant Colonel Kininda, Mr. Kininda, told him that there is a firearm that warrant Officer Rudolph's work on, which could be linked in this case.
Sorry. Okay, proceed, sorry.
Thank you. He then requested Mr. Mangena to go there personally fetch the firearm. And the reason why Mr. Mangena did not request Kininda to bring it to him was that Mangena knew specifically where to find that firearm.
uKhuphukelwe Mangena etshela ke lenkantolo izathu sokuthi ke ahambe ke ayiyele yena ke mathupha ke police station ngoba ke kwakhulumisana naye ke uBrigadier Kininda futhi ke izathu sokuthi ke kungabi yena ke uBrigadier Kininda oyayo kodwa Mangena ayiyele khona lapho kwakungoba ke uKhuphukelwe Mangena wayazi ukuthi isibhamu lesi uzosithola kuphi futhi uKininda wakusho ke nako ukuthi isibhamu lesi ke lesi warrant officer Rudolph asebenza ngaso kungenzeka ke ukuthi ke siyambandakanyeka icala elithize.
Do you follow?
I follow, my lord. I just don't understand the concept of knew exactly where to find the firearm.
Yeah,
Is he referring to the...
He's not telling you the whole story. Mangena's evidence is that this firearm was involved in a Cleveland case where somebody else was charged with unlawful possession of that very same firearm. And that case was finalized. That's one of the aspects which you're not being told. That case was finalized. So according to Mangena, when he goes to fetch that firearm, it's supposed to be just destroyed. It's not going to be investigated in any other matter except the one which he assumes it could be relevant to. Okay.
Okunye ke okusho kwamahlulelile ummeli angakusho kwenaphi ukuthi ke futhi ke wayekwazi ke uMangena ukuthi ke isibhamu leso sasihlanganiswa ke necala ke lase Cleveland la ekwakunomuntu khona ke owayethweswe ke lelo cala lelo bebe sokuthi ke manje ke mase qediwe ke nalelo cala alikho icala bezohlanganiswa naso leso sibhamu lesi ngoba ke seliqediwe leliyana.
That is exactly what I was saying. That warrant officer Rudolph worked on this firearm, completed his examination of his firearm, put it in the seal bag, and his firearm was sent back to the police station where it came from.
I understand.
I only omitted to mention the name of the police station, which is Cleveland. And at the police station, the SAP 13 clerk, yes, I think it's Mr. Mchali, then received instruction that he needed to prepare that firearm for destruction.
I understand, my lord.
But before that process could eventuate, then Mr. Mangena, Mr. Kininda approached or informed Mr. Mangena that no, that firearm that warrant officer Rudolph worked on could be involved in this case.
I understand, my lord.
Could you then please go and fetch it? That is exactly where I am.
Ngiyakuzwa ke ukuthi washo kanjalo ukuthi ke kusengenzeka ukuthi leso sibhamu leso siyambandakanyeka kuleli cala manje hamba ke uyosilanda.
Now, would you agree with me that as soon as that firearm was released by the Forensic Science Laboratory after warrant officer Rudolph worked on it, it went out of the perimeters of the Forensic Science Laboratory? In other words, it was released.
It left the property, my lord, if that is what you're trying to say.
Yebo ke useqedile ke ngaso ukuthi isibhamu leso saye sesiphuma ke khona lapho.
Now, because the Forensic Science Laboratory knew that such an exhibit is no longer in our possession, what should have been the proper protocol in respect of its return back into the Forensic Science Laboratory?
My lord, this is an exception. There isn't necessarily specific protocol because this is something out of the ordinary. It is not a standard norm or an average case that we get to examine in the laboratory.
Lana ke sikhuluma ngento ke eyayingajwayelekile ke noma ke lokhu ngandlela ke sivamise ukuthi senze ngayo ke ele kodwa ke njena lena kwakuyisimo nje esasisodwa noma ke esasikhethekile.
What is ordinary about this?
There's nothing ordinary about this case in terms of the collection of the firearm. I'm saying ordinary case, receive the case reception, following the process, hand it to the analyst, you do it in your office, you reseal it, you hand it back to the safe. That is an ordinary daily case.
Mangikhuluma ke ngecala ke elijwayelekile ke lamalanga onke ke ila icala elibhaliswa khona ke mala elifikela khona ke landlulisela kuwena uyasebenza ngalo bese futhi uyalibuyisela.
Maybe I did not understand you when you speak about extraordinary. Were you saying that this case was an extraordinary case?
The specific situation would be extraordinary. As to now, the firearm is up for destruction, and it is at the SAP 13.
Yes.
And Colonel Mangena would like to re-examine the firearm.
Yes.
That is something else.
lana ke bese sikhuluma manje ke ngokunye ke noma ke mhlambe engasikona lokho okujwayelekile ukuthi isibhamu kwaseqediwe ukusetshenziswa ngaso sekuzohanjwa ke manje sesiyochithwa ke manje uKenya Mangena fanele aphinde futhi asebenze ngaso.
That is exactly my question. What is extraordinary about that?
I would assume that in order to prevent the firearm from being sent for destruction, Colonel Mangena took immediate action to ensure that he can collect the firearm, that it is available for recollection. Once it is destroyed, it cannot be re-examined. So, in my opinion, it would be to prevent such an event from occurring.
Lana ke ngikhuluma ngokuthi ke kwakuyena ke ukuthi manje ke avimbeke ukuthi isibhamu lesithathwe ke manje bese siyohlakazwa ke ngokuthi ke ayihambele yena ke ayiyele khona lapho ayosithola isibhamu ngoba uma bese sihlakazwe ke bengeke aphinda akwazi ke ukuthi asibheke noma sihlole.
What do you say about the fact that he received information from the investigating officer? Should he not have said to the investigating officer, no, bring that firearm yourself?
It depends on the situation, my lord. I cannot comment as to why the investigating officer asked Colonel Mangena to collect it.
Angeke ngikusho ukuthi kwakungani ukuthi umphethi wecala abesethi ke uKenya Mangena akahambe yena ayosilanda isibhamu.
Thank you. But now even so, upon Mr. Mangena's arrival with the firearm in the forensic science laboratory, did he not have to go through the proper channel of registering the firearm through the administrative section of the forensic science laboratory?
Not necessarily, my lord, because the case has been registered. It's the same firearm received. There's no specific procedure that needs to be followed.
Kwakungekho ke kwafanele kwenziwe noma ke akulandeleke ngoba ke isibhamu leso sasesikhona lapho ke futhi necala futhi nalo ke seli-registrariwe.
As long as Colonel Mangena kept record of his actions, that it would be sufficient.
Ukuthi nje uKenya Mangena yena ke konke awayekwenza ke kube okubhalwa phansi.
Now, what about the notion that every exhibit that gets into the into the forensic science laboratory needs to be registered in order to track its movement? Where does that fit in the fact that Mr. Mangena did not register his firearm?
In terms of tracking an exhibit, my lord, there are several people handling that specific exhibit. Once it is received by an administrative person who registers it. From there, the ballistic administration section will come collect the specific firearm. From there, it will be placed in the ballistic safe. From there, it will be handed over to an analyst by someone working in the safe. So there are several people involved in handling that specific exhibit.
Kunabantu ke abahlukene ke abambandakanyekayo ke noma ke isibhamu leso ke noma izibiti lelo elizohamba kubona ke ngaphambilini kokuthi uma sekukhulunywa ke ngokuthi ngokulandelela nokubheka ukuthi ke sihamba kuphi noma izibiti lelo likuphi nendawo.
So for the example of this specific case, Colonel Mangena is the only one handling the firearm. So the procedure would then be different.
Lana ke uKenya Mangena kwakuyena kuphela umuntu ke owayesebenza noma ephethe leso sibhamu okusho ukuthi ke manje indlela yakhe yokwenza izokwehluka.
Are you suggesting then that you could also have gone to a scene somewhere, go fetch the firearm and not register it and take it into your laboratory and work on it without having first register it with the administrative section of the forensic science laboratory? Is that what you're saying?
No, my lord, that is not what I'm saying. It will depend on the merits of the case. This firearm has already been at the laboratory. There is already a record of this firearm. I'm not collecting a brand new exhibit that has never been received at the laboratory. I will not. That is a completely different set of circumstances.
Nasibona ke lokho ngisho ukuthi nami bengahamba ngiyena noma ikuphi ngiyolanda ke izibiti ngingalibhalisile kodwa ke lana kuhlukile ke ngoba lesi sibhamu bese sikhona ke ngaphambilini khona lana ke akusiyo ukuthi ke kuyolandwa ke into noma ukusha ongasetshenzwanga ngako la bekuhlukile kulesi sibhamu.
Thank you. Now, this firearm, whether for good or wrong reasons, it got into the forensic science laboratory. Then Mangena worked on it. He then analyzed the scene bullets vis-a-vis the test bullets which were testified about. Do you understand?
I understand that.
Sasifika kuyena ke uMangena wabe esesebenza ke manje ngenhlamvu lena ke indawo yesigameko kanye naleyo ke ekuyena ke kwaba inhlamvu eyatestwa.
And amongst others, what it did was to request your opinion on this firearm. That's what you told the court.
That's correct, my lord.
Akwenza ke ukuthi acele kumina ke uvo mayelana nalesi sibhamu.
Did Mangena tell you the reason why
markings? From there, I proceeded. From there, I proceeded to compare the test bullets to the specific exhibit bullet, after which I determined that the exhibit bullet was fired from the same firearm as the test bullets.
Engakwenza ukuthi ke